Gracias for pressing play. You welcome to SmartChickens, a working together, smarter diversity meets innovation and growth podcast. In today's episode, we have a very special guest, Sangram Vagre. He is the chief evangelist and co-founder of ABM SaaS leader Terminus. Two-time author of ABM is B2B and account-based marketing for dummies. The host of the Top 50 Business podcast, Flip My Funnel. And because Mr. Boom has more energy than a pinned up hamster on a mini treadmill, he's just launched host of Peak Community, a private community for marketers and leaders that want to get 1% better. And he's also the host of Flip My Funnel with 100,000 community members in marketing and sales since 2015. We have a very real conversation around his journey from India, where he obtained his BS in computer sciences at Nagpur University, to obtaining his master's in computer science at the University of Alabama, and paid for his tuition in a very interesting way, which you'll learn in the episode. His career experiences throughout his journey, becoming the co-founder, CMO, and now chief evangelist of Terminus, the ABM SaaS leader, to creating a very successful podcast, LinkedIn Live series, and private marketing and sales communities. We chat a little bit about his involvement in marketing and sales and things you could do now amid our turbulent times to get better 1% each day. Gives us some valuable resources for us to use. And we go back with him on a Back to the Future DeLorean to speak to a younger Sangram. As always, this podcast is brought to you by our good friends at digitechie.com, a conversational marketing demand gen and revenue accelerator consultancy, helping B2B companies achieve 6 to 7 figures in pipeline consistently. And gypsyforever.com, uniquely handmade wellness products that help you connect your mind, body, and soul to achieve a better balanced you. A little bit about Sangram's background. He has had a meteoric career in SaaS. He was head of demand generation at Internap, then jumped over to head of marketing for Salesforce's Pardot marketing product before he founded Flip My Funnel podcast and co-founded Terminus, an ABM SaaS pioneer and leader in the space. He is now Terminus's chief evangelist and also the co-founder, and he has launched as of April a very innovative private B2B marketing and sales leader community group called Peak Community, where his goal is for all members to get 1% better each day. Vamos, let's dive into the show. Without further ado, here's Sangram, or as he would say, Sangram here. Again, good morning and welcome to SmartChickens, a podcast dedicated to diversity meets innovation and growth, much more than skin deep. And today I have a very, incredible guest, powerful guest who lives by this sort of motto of you've got to align your origin story with your superpowers and just go for it. And that's what I see in you, Sangram. So again, thank you so much for having the time with us today.
Of course, Gianni. Anything for you, man.
I really appreciate that. So, what I wanted to do was I'd love to learn about your origin story, right? Because with other folks that I've spoken to, and every time I listen to great entrepreneurs, it's always funny how something from their backstory, right, is something that kind of either inspired, motivated, or had something that went like aha in their time of growing into through their journey and growing into what they are today. So tell us a little bit about your upbringing. Take us back to what influenced you as a young Sangram.
Yeah, well, man, how long do we have, right? So I grew up in a small town in India. Came to the States about 15 years ago. And I was one of the 5, we have a joint family, so big family, about 20 people, typically on an average in and out of the house. So I love that because most often we would actually go up on the terrace and sleep as an entire family, looking at the stars, hearing stories from my dad and his brother and sometimes our uncles and whatnot. And that's how, it was a beautiful time growing up. But I was also the youngest in the family, which meant that, if you're young and I don't know, Gianni, if you're the youngest in your family or not, but like, man, if you're young, if you're the youngest and you have like 4 other folks that you're trying to get your attention in front of, then you start doing things that are pretty unorthodox in a way. So I remember going to school, because all of my brothers and sisters have gone to the same school. The teachers knew each one of them. And I could never rise up to any one of them, because one of them was good at sports, one of them was good at studies, one of them was really good at like crafts. So there's all my siblings, they were good at something. So by the time I showed up, I was never Sangram. I was so-and-so's brother, so-and-so's brother or sister, whoever that was. So all of that led me to always take unconventional routes to make my mark. So growing up, I joined the Indian version of Boy Scouts and just did a whole bunch of camps, and that nobody knew anybody of my family there. So I get to be me. I didn't have to pretend. I just was myself. Same thing happened when I came to the States for University of Alabama. Fast forward that a little bit to when I came here at about $350 in my pocket. And my parents had taken a loan for the first semester. And the discussion was like, all right, you got to pay that up as quickly as possible and figure out a way to pay for the rest of the semesters over here. There's no way they would pay for it or were able to pay for that, right?
Right.
That led me to find, again, very unconventional, similar, off the beaten path opportunities where at the University of Alabama, I found folks who would want to take a different language course. I found an Indian girlfriend or boyfriend to an American girlfriend or boyfriend. And I said, hey, don't you want to learn Hindi, like this language? Because one of you have that origin. So they said, fine. And I found a loophole in a way that if you go to the critical languages department in your university and find 3 people to take a course, they will pay for your entire tuition. So I was the first person to go and say, we're going to do a Hindi class. And I found these 4 incredible people to do 101. I bought a book on Amazon. I learned how to teach Hindi, and that's what I taught, and that's what paid my tuition. So every single thing, that I think that's when I realized that I think I can sell stuff. I can market stuff. Entrepreneurship is something that I want to be part of.
No, that's a wonderful insight. I didn't know that about you. I mean, I did some of the research, and on LinkedIn, I obviously saw that you went to Tide in Alabama, and that you were part of the presidents of the Indian, I guess, association. Yeah. So I see the resourcefulness, and it's funny that you say that about your childhood, that having to find that unique superpowers or what makes you different. And for you was, the Boy Scout version of in India, right? To help you kind of differentiate yourself. And I can totally now see why you are who you are and how you do everything intentionally on how to differentiate yourself, right? So that's been kind of like a trademark of your career. So talk us through a little bit of, your journey when you did graduate and started working in the real world, right? So, I've seen companies like Deloitte in your background, Internap, and others. People say, right, that success happens at the intersections of opportunity meets preparation. So what did that look like for you?
Well, 2 things. First, on intentionality, I think you've heard me say this before. I've learned it the hard way. And if there was one thing I want people to take away from this conversation, if they want to write it down, I would say, write this thing down. And it took me 10 years of therapy maybe to get to this point. So here it is. Being intentional is more important than being brilliant.
Yeah, no, I love that.
Us, right? Like every one of us thinks that we are brilliant. We got some smart idea. We got to do something. Before Uber became Uber, everybody in their kitchen table thought, oh, that I had that idea. Of course you did. Everybody did. But you didn't go for it, right? You were not intentional about it. You didn't do anything. You just kept talking about it. So I think being intentional, there's so much value in that. Is what you do, how you think about it, how you look at it, and not beating yourself up or not being like too processed. But the fact that it's important for me to show up every day so people trust that I'm not someone that's going to come in and go. I'm going to be staying there, right? So that's the intentionality of that's why I post daily on LinkedIn for the last 2 years. That's why I do a daily podcast, because I want to make sure that I stay, and I do it in a way that I want to make sure that it's community centric. So I wanted to kind of connect that dots, because that's a very important thing that you picked up on. And I think we all can do better. I can do better around intentionality. So that's one. On the whole idea of at the intersection of it, I feel like I look at this as like a far from being successful by any stretch, but I do feel that there is a real hunger for finding ways to try new things and test new things. One of the best things we can do right now, and I think everybody has access to this, is to test and try. Somebody asked me, hey, I'm not sure if I want to put it on LinkedIn. What if nobody liked my comment or anything like that? Great, you post another one tomorrow. Nobody remembers that. Like we think that it's like a trademark for life. Like nobody cares how many you had or not have. As a matter of fact, if you get really good, like there's no guarantee that tomorrow's post is going to be as good as yesterday's, right? So,
Sure.
We trap ourselves into this artificial short-term goals that puts us behind everybody and almost leads to inaction to drive any kind of outcome. So all that to say is that I think, to me, success and all that stuff is the ability to just keep testing and trying new things, learning new things. And as long as you do that, you're going to be finding yourself better and faster in many areas. The day you stop and think that, well, I don't need to do that anymore, I think that's when everything ceases to exist.
Yeah, no, those are really interesting points. And, I know that because I'm a member of your private community, Peak Marketing, that you emphasize that quite a bit, which is kind of put to practice what you're thinking, what your peers are thinking or doing, and kind of learn through their lessons, but also get your own lessons, right? So, if you're a bit of a sports fan, then and you've heard a million times about Michael not making his high school basketball team, right? Yeah. Yet he'll be the first to say, in his documentary recently, he talked about this as well, which is, you got to fail more times to find that sliver of success, right? So part of that is what I've seen in your journey, in your career, is that you've done so many different things. The podcast with Flip My Funnel that you started back in 2015, 100,000 community members later, but it took all that aggregate time and being intentional to get there, right? Same thing what you're doing right now with your project since, I guess, April, in Peak Community, which I think is another, fantastic way to get leaders in marketing, sales, B2B, B2C, it doesn't matter, who want to get that 1% better, as you put it, and kind of using collective experiences to do that. What are you seeing right now in terms of, you had an interesting guest, Joe Pelusi, the other day, right? Yeah. And when people see, someone with your bandwidth of, you have a top 50 funnel, a Flip My Funnel podcast. You've got your Sangram Lives that are Mondays and Wednesdays religiously, right? You've got, which are great. You've got your Peak Community, which has a lot of content going. Everything is very content based and it's rich and educational. But how are you able to manage that? And to Joe Pelusi's point, he mentioned that it's not about a quantity of content, right? Some of us in marketing and sales get caught up with that. Hey, I don't have enough blogs that are being posted. I don't have a podcast, or my podcast is not, at XYZ level. And they try to just, kind of fill a content calendar up, if you will, in hopes that that's going to drive the demand gen, the lead gen that they need to, to make quarter goals. What would you give us advice about that? Because, for you, it's been a 5-year journey, which you're still fine tuning, right? Yeah. But, folks right now, more than ever, particularly because we're going through this, this pandemic and its impact on our businesses, what would you tell them to focus on? Or how can they, what are some tactics or strategies on how they can focus on getting content that's worthwhile for them and for their business?
Joe was really good. And I love that he anchored on the point of like, create one piece of content that's like the most important one and give everything for free. And I think that's a really smart business strategy. And if you look at Terminus right now, like that's what we have. We don't really, almost every piece of content is available. Like, why hide it? Here's an alternative thing. Here's something that actually has been tested and practiced by me and many others, is the ability to fine tune different things. So the reason I do this on a daily is because it's all about habits. And Gian, like, if we are creatures of habits, we need to have certain things happen on a regular basis in order for it to get better at. If they don't, so to me, frequency matters. Now, the quality, what I have observed, it grows over a period of time as you learn what works, what doesn't.
Absolutely.
right? So it's like, if I put something out there once a month, I only have 12 shots at improving it in a year. If I had like, every week, I have 52 chances. I do it every day. Now I got 365 chances. What I can learn in 365, why wouldn't I learn? And then I might choose to do different things. So another practical example, Peak Community that you just shared, that we are part of. It is a place. It's like a playground for me, right? It is where I'm again retesting. I'm not even promoting podcasts and stuff on it because that's just so far off. Like I want engagement in that. I want people to find. I want to give voices to people that they didn't have voices on it. I like like all the lives I interview CEO of Zoom Info who just went public, all the way to somebody who's just trying to build a business, to an SDR that's their first job. Because I'm not trying to trap myself into like, well, this is, I only talk to so and so level, because I look at everybody as a person, and there's a tremendous value in every person, and I want to learn from every person no matter what stage you're, because there's something to learn from them. So to me, all of that's just my own personal thing. I'm just a curious person. I want to do this. Now, what's the intentionality behind that? But going back to it, Terminus is going great. We have over 200 employees, 1,000 customers. It's running. We have a new executive team. So this stuff that's humming, that allows me to say, you know what, that's working. I don't need to over fine tune it. Let me work on really massive initiatives like the partnership with Parlat we just did, and Salesforce and other things. That allows me to go to a point where, like, you know what, at one point, almost everybody reported to me. Now I have literally 0 direct reports. And so it's a way of letting go of things as opposed to holding on to things. So I realized my power, my enjoyment, my best value to the community around me is me going out there, speaking, encouraging, motivating, writing books. Like, these are the things that I truly enjoy. They're like second nature to me. So I would encourage everybody to find what is so easy to you that everybody around you thinks that, wait a minute, how does that person even do that? But it is so easy to you that you can do that in your sleep. Like, it doesn't stress you out. It doesn't take you energy. It gives you energy. So to me, that's what gives me energy. What took energy off me was sitting in a meeting, figuring out what the comp plan for a sales rep is going to be for this year, and which territory that person is going to sell. Like, my head does not work really well in that. And I know other people are smarter and better at that than I am, and enjoy that. So finding what you are so good at, and this is really important. It took me a while, because there's this ego that we all have that, hey, look, I'm good at everything. I can do this, that, and the other. And if I don't do that, then I'm like giving up. No, you're not. You actually are letting go. Big difference. So I love that. Let go of things, right?
I love that. I'm going to have that as a quote: learn to give it up, let go, so that you can grow. Because you're talking about growth, and that personal growth and career growth happens when you do give up, right? So, I mean, you've got an incredible executive team with Tim Klopp that just joined. Yeah. And so you've got the right team. And that's another thing that I guess I would say that I've noticed about, leaders in SaaS, or just leaders in general, that are doing it right, which are doing what you're doing, right? Which is learning to let go. In other words, finding the right team, building teams that give you that room to go. It seems to me that you're just so hyper-focused on being truly the chief evangelist office of not just Terminus and ABM as a category, which Terminus created and is holding the flag for, but also that it allows you to connect and do these macro and micro connections, right? Because when I take a look at the kind of the plethora of content that you have on the 3 platforms that I'm on and following you on, I see that you're right. You run the gamut. You've got, like the CEO of Zoom, Info with his tremendous story, but then you're helping Amber Khan, one of our folks at Peak Community out of London, right? Yeah. So this kind of spans the time and the levels, if you will, of where people could be within their careers or in their industry. So I love that. I really love that. And I'm going to definitely put that in the show notes so that it's something that sticks in people's mind. So, tell me a little bit of what you're thinking these days around ABM, because I think ABM, it hasn't, it might have, people might have considered it in its infancy, maybe, 5 years ago, let's say, when Terminus really and others, I know you've got competitors in your market, but, you had Salesforce that could have easily gone into a niche ABM, because they're the 8,000-pound gorilla with that type of data, right?
Yeah.
B2B data around sales and target accounts. What are you guys thinking about? What are you thinking about specifically with ABM and how it's growing and evolving?
Well, I mean, you know the second book I wrote, right? I didn't want to go in the history books that, hey, this guy's the godfather of ABM, without having the end note saying that, well, ABM is B2B, which means that it's just a better, smarter marketing. It's going to be. So I honestly predict that 3 to 5 years from now, Gianni, nobody's going to talk about ABM. They're just not. It's just going to be like, hey, this is just a better, smarter way of doing marketing. So it's just going to become how marketing and sales operate as one team. I also see that the role of the CRO will change quite a bit. Right now, I think it's still coming up, that chief sales officer to CRO. But the CRO, I think, is going to take marketing and revenue again. Like the whole revenue. Marketing is part of marketing. Like, and you've heard me say this, is to either incrementally or exponentially grow sales. And a lot of marketers don't even think about it. They feel like, oh, I'm a content marketer. I'm a demand gen person. I'm an events person. I'm a graphic designer. No, that's just something that you do. You're hired ultimately to either incrementally or exponentially grow sales. Now that mindset is the mindset I feel ABM allows marketers to shift to. That, look, your job is to help salespeople in their accounts. So the future, I really look at it saying that marketers are going to go from being just specialists, which every marketer is for the most part. That's why you hire them. They're really good at that, to become a little bit more generalist. So if anybody wants to be a CMO, and that's one of the things we talk about in the peak community, the reason most marketers don't even have a shot at becoming a CMO, not even a shot, is because they're so good at what they do that they have no idea what else it needs to become a CMO. So to me, account-based, if people are thinking, well, that's just a strategy, that's just a tactic, that's just a technology, I'll say, wake up. It's actually your ticket to get promoted. It's your ticket to one day become a CMO, because people who can work on accounts and help their business sell more or have greater pipeline velocity or create more expansion and retention, you're going to make more money to the organization help you make more money, you're going to get promoted. So I think people are looking at it more as a technology play and more of like, hey, how am I going to run my next campaign? And they're completely missing the point that that's their ticket to become the next CMO.
Yeah, no, so interesting that you say that. And I agree 1,000% on that. But so what the predicament, right? And to kind of go off of my SmartChickens, right? What came first, the chicken or the egg, is a predicament that sales and marketing, I think, has always had, right? So it's, sales is looking to close business and grow revenue, and marketing is traditionally looked at who is bringing in the demand lead, the demand gen, right? The marketing qualified, sales qualified leads, right? And then there's been that division of camps, and those silos have now kind of, I would say, probably in the last 10 years, really gone away. It really depends on the leadership, I think, to see how the alignment is between sales and marketing, or how that's evolving. Where ABM, I think, places it's at the heart and the center of all that, right? So if you truly have an organization that has sales and marketing alignment going on, right, to think about revenue acceleration, expansion, retention goals, all those things you just mentioned, they truly have to have that at the heart. But that begins with really having an organization's leadership, I think, the C-level, that understand and want to see marketing and sales working in alignment, not marketing as a cost center and just X number of, percentage of attribution to sales qualified leads. And that's the only thing they do. Right. Yeah. So when you think about companies, and you're at the C-level, so what is that C-level conversation to help organizations understand how to first really think about mapping their sales and marketing alignment in a real way with some tactics and strategies, but then also baking into their DNA ABM, because ABM is here to stay. You can't even say it's the future. It's already been with us. Yeah. It's just people maybe haven't been using one either tech stack like a Terminus, but they may have been trying to Frankenstein sort of an ABM sort of playbook within their sales and marketing organization. But what would you say about that? Like, what are the C-levels, or someone who's coming into an organization is trying to get that bridge, right? Align the marketing and sales. What do they need to be talking about?
Well, I believe it's 1,000% marketer's fault. I'll just get out straight up, when the C-level executives don't understand what's going on in marketing. Example, if your marketing budget goes down because the revenue numbers are not getting it, that means you as an organization, as a marketer, haven't really done your job to help your C-level executive how marketing supports your business, period. So let's just get the chicken out of the old hen house right now, because that's really what the challenge is. It's not the C-level's problem. I know I hear that, and I think I shared with you in the community a poll that I ran saying, what is the number one reason why ABM fails? And people said marketing and sales misalignment. That was 80%. Like of 500, I think it was 600 not, but at least 500 people responded to that poll and said, and 80% of them said that because of marketing and sales misalignment. Now, you just said that, hey, look, it's been a decade that people have been talking about it, it's fixed. I don't think it's fixed. And the reason it's not fixed is because marketing and sales still have different goals. So if your organization is an organization where marketing's job is or a number or goals or metrics are different than your sales goals and metrics, you're just shooting yourself in the foot. That's not going to help. So that's the number one thing as a C-level executive, as a marketer, you need to do is to go back to your salesman. Hey, I don't need a lead goal. I bank my bonus on us hitting revenue goals. So let me change my metrics, not to number of leads, but to revenue. Now, how do we get to that revenue is irrelevant. We will figure it out because our bonus depends on it. So once you start and your marketing team ties to that particular goal, guess what's going to happen? Marketing and sales are going to spend more time together. Marketings are going to be on the call when the salespeople are actually trying to get to the next future customer. They're going to create content that matters to them, not like here's our theme of the month ebook, right? Like that nobody reads. That is the challenge. So metrics, if there was one thing to take away from that, is that make sure that your organization, marketing and sales, has the same number, a same metric. Otherwise, you're going to have a lot of just unnecessary conversations.
Right. No, I agree. What are some practical tactics that you've seen? For example, I consulted with a company where that was their issue, their marketing sales alignment.
Yeah.
But then we brought in a little bit of ABM. We didn't use Terminus, but we had Pardot, Salesforce. They had a different tech stack, right? At the time, they were trying to evolve it. And they started with, your typical, on Salesforce, everyone had to pick their 100 to 200 targeted accounts, right? Yeah. Whether you're mid enterprise or SMB or mid-market, it depended if you were inside sales or outside sales, what your territories were, right?
Yeah.
But that became kind of the true north in terms of what every salesperson had to target and reach, right? And then marketing, we would assign sort of a marketing sort of specialist to help creating the content, creating all the necessary kind of the ground cover for attacking that targeted account or those targeted accounts. What are you seeing that's working? So if you have think of your typical, SDR, AEs, inside, outside territory reps. I would say that I would argue today because of COVID-19, everyone's basically, there is no outside reps, right? It's everything in-house, inside. But what are some tactics of choosing those targeted accounts, right? Maybe doing some data governance to make sure that you've got the right kind of accounts in your CRM, whatever that CRM is. What are some tactics that you're seeing that help get that sales alignment and marketing alignment to really get the most out of an ABM platform?
Well, I mean, I'll give you two. One is, honestly, the best way to start that is find the 2 reps in your team, in your sales organization, that you can actually spend a lot of time, your buddy with, you're doing social happy hours with them virtually or physically, how you do it. And ask them, what accounts do you need to close in order to meet your quota this month or this quarter? I guarantee you they won't look at a spreadsheet, they won't look at a CRM, they will tell you.
I already know it right here.
They're right there, they're working on it, right? So you say, okay, fine, I got your 10 accounts. Now, what do you need for these 10 accounts? What's the challenge that you're struggling with them? And they're going to tell you right off, well, that I don't have enough people in that account that know about it. This one, they're kind of like, they need a reference customer because I don't think they really get it. That particular account, we feel like we have enough hooks in it, but I think there might be some content that could help them because they really struggle with the revenue metric around it or some ROI of our product and stuff. They will know exactly the pain points they have for help that could help them, if addressed, to close those deals. As a marketer, you do the most unscalable things possible to help them close those 10 deals. Meaning you can take an ebook and say, all right, the ROI, I get it. It's a manufacturing company. Let me change the ebook, make it about manufacturing, add more details to it, and make it all about that company. Make it personalized as if we just created that ebook for that company and send that over. Guess what? 100% open rate, 100% engagement rate. If nothing else, you'll get a 100% chance of response. That's the level of things that I think marketers can start doing. So a lot of times I think, Gianni, we think like, is this like we got to change the world in the idea of account base? The reality is no, you really need to go and pick up the phone and talk to your sales rep and get them to win. Like literally, that's what account based is help. Like you've probably heard me say this. The title of your sales reps are account executives. Like they get accounts. It's the marketers that didn't get accounts. It's like people like me who never understood accounts. We kept giving them leads. That's the problem. Don't give them leads. Give them leads in the account they need to close that month, that quarter. Then you don't need these SLAs and MQLs and SQLs. These processes were created because marketers was giving them crap that didn't help them meet their business goals. If that doesn't change, then the business outcomes are not going to change. So I think the answer is in the question. If you want better alignment with sales and marketing, talk to your sales rep, work on the top 10 deals that they got going on. And once you make them win, here's what I've seen happen more often than not. Those 10 or 3 or 5 sales reps, they're going to go tell everybody in the organization at the end of the month and the quarter saying that, man, they look at these marketers. They did some really cool stuff. Guess what? Next thing, the CRO and the CFO and the CEO is going to say, why are you not doing that for my rest of the reps? And that's when you say, great idea. Let's do it. Give me more budget. I will do that. And they will give you the budget you need. So instead of going and asking for more budget and going through justification, let the results speak for themselves.
Yeah, no, I love that. So would you say that for companies now that are, everyone's got numbers to hit, quarterly goals to hit, everyone's feeling the crunch. We're in the second half of the year. And they may have target accounts, marketing and sales may be aligned, right? So here's the scenario. And you've got, 20% revenue deficit that you're trying to make up and being realistic about it, you're only going to be able to hit X percentage of that. When you're talking about this alignment and you're saying get on calls with your sales folks, learn 100% what their business goal is on a quarterly basis, yearly basis, right? To get those target accounts. Outside of all the tactics that marketing does, what else could marketing do to really understand and kind of walk a mile in the shoes of a salesperson, right? Because as you know, marketers, right? Not all, but you've got some that are very special, unique that can live in both worlds, the creative marketing content land and the pragmatic spreadsheet marketer. I call it the spreadsheet marketer versus the brand marketer, right? So very few can be like you're sort of that very few, right? You're both. You get the creative, I need to put out great content and be creative about it and be different and intentional about it. But I also know pragmatically that I'm doing this because I'm helping to generate the right kind of attract the right kind of, ideal customer profile, and then being able to accelerate, them in the pipeline. So tell me what you're seeing or what you think would be very valuable for a marketer who's trying to shape himself or herself into that I'm not just the one-sided creative mind, but I've got the pragmatic spreadsheet marketer kind of view, right? The sales revenue view.
Well, I mean, it's a great challenge, I think, for marketers because, it's like we love to be in our comfort zone. And chances are whoever is listening to this, you're hired in the position because you're really good at that. And as a result of that, what happens is you're going to be asked to do more of that. So that's where you're like, the challenge lies for you. It's like, wait a minute, I'm great at content. Now I'm asked to create 5 more ebooks every month and 4 webinars. And so there's no way you can learn about product marketing. if you're a product marketer today, it's really hard for you to talk about and think about demand gen because you're so much into the product release and the product features and the product website and the product data sheet and the customer stories that the demand gen ideas of how do you get the next new customer, it's like foreign to you if you don't pay attention to it. So it's a very important question. And I think it goes back to full circle to the idea that, are you a holistic marketer? Now, it's a choice. I want this to be very clear. I know a really good designer who is probably one day might become a CMO if she wants to, but she's an incredibly creative designer. And here's what I've seen about her. She would always, her mind would work on the design side. And that's when I see her happy.
Got it.
And when I see her do other stuff that is actually she's good at, comparatively to some of the others, she can actually do a really good job at those things, but I don't see her as happy as she is in her creative mode. So the point being that, hey, look, it's you have to make a choice. You have to recognize that, hey, look, you can't be good at everything. If you want to be a CMO or go to the next level or something like that, then you need to start thinking about yourself a little bit more as a generalist. And if you want to do that, you need to be okay with going back to another concept we talked about of letting go of a few things. But if it doesn't make you happy, if it doesn't make your soul happy, then you're going to be in a really bad place. So for me personally, it took me 6 months to get out of this anxiety of like, oh my God, I was the CMO of my own company that I founded. And now I'm not, I don't have, and I had like, 100 plus people reporting, and now I have nobody reporting to me. Like, you can't imagine, like that would make somebody feel like a failure, a loss that I can't do. I thought I could, but I've never been more happy. And I've never felt more influential in my own organization and externally and in my own personal life than I'm now, because I'm free. I don't have the bondage of trying to be everything to everyone. My whole thing is my spirit is free. So
Man, that's powerful right there. So you're taking it so personal, I've noticed, right? In terms of your own personal growth, what it meant to be a CMO and a co-founder for an organization, and then having that I need to let go, right, moment. And so if we think about founders, some founders, let's say that are going to be listening to this podcast, who are not there yet, right? They're having to be the Swiss Army knife.
Yes.
Right. And you know how this goes.
There's a good reason. You should be that at a given point in your organization. You need it to be that. Yeah.
Right. So, because there's that journey, right? So people want to become the CEO of YOU, right? They get that aha moment. They got their experience working for XYZ companies. Now they want to take it to the next level. They kind of proverbially jump off the cliff, and try to go for their CEO of YOU. But then there's a maturity in the company once it gets to a certain point, is what it seems to me that happened with you at Terminus, is that now you're building a team that's greater outside of where you've taken it. And now you want to just focus all your energy into what you know is your superpower, right? Yeah. And what makes you shine, as well as your brand. So when I think of companies these days, usually you either have a brand leader, right? So I'll give you someone right? Dave Gerhardt, Drift in the early years, a complete brand leader, right? And he'll be the first to say it and admit it, right? He had to live in spreadsheet land, but that's not his superpower. His superpower is creating brands, right? Categories, right? And then you have to go to companies that once they get into that point in their maturity, where they're looking potentially at an IPO, or now they're looking at acquiring companies because they actually have a nice, run rate. Then you've got a different type of marketer need to come into the mix. Someone that's more enterprise ready, someone that's maybe more of a spreadsheet marketer, right? But throughout it all, though, I do think that you mentioned something just now about basically you've got to know the numbers. So that requires you to have this sort of, reverse engineering type of attitude, right? Going from where do you want to be? So Michael James of Floodgate, Dr. Michael James Michael, sorry, of a Floodgate VC out in Silicon Valley, he had an interesting topic about backcasting, which was looking 5 years into, like, let's say, you and your leadership team are looking 5 years into post-COVID-19, and you're working from that point and going backwards, like, where do you want to be? But it's funny because you've got to be both a futurist looking that far out to see where the market is or where you anticipate maybe you want to lead the market there, but at the same time, you're being like a nonfiction, not a nonfiction, you're being a pragmatic spreadsheet type of, C-level or marketer, where you have to live in the today, which are, what are the numbers for the quotas that we need to meet, right? What are the new, new categories we're trying to create within our space? So tell me about that. Like, how do you, in the company think about, backcasting, looking 5 years into this organization, into this industry, into this market?
Yeah, I love that, man. Another way to say that is start with end in mind, right? Yeah. And the end, honestly, I wouldn't put a date on it because it changes the way you think about it. Actually limits in many ways, I feel like, I don't know what better way to say that is, it limits our thinking of what we want to be or what greatness looks like. Because we a lot of times would think what we actually think we can achieve in 5 years sometimes could be done in a year. And what sometimes you want to get done in a day, it could actually take you a millennia to kind of get there, right? Mm-hmm. So it's the mindset of it. So I wouldn't put a date. It's the pursuit of happiness, right? As you think about the Declaration of Independence, is that the pursuit of getting there is a lot more fun and an incredible journey for everyone to be on. Because once you get there, it's not as cool. Right? Like I remember at Terminus, like when we closed the first deal, we did not know what it was. I don't know if you know, like I had to literally put the person on mute and ask my other co-founder, hey, what should we sell for? Because we're so excited to sell. When the person said, hey, Gretchen, who was on the side, Gretchen said, so how much is this for? And we had no idea because we never thought about even pricing in the early days. Like, I don't know, Eric, what do you think? He said, dude, you're the marketer. You come up with something. I'm like, $250 a month. He's like, yeah, fine. Unmute Gretchen, it's $250 a month. She's like, yeah, great. Send me an order form. I'm like, okay, great. What's an order form? Google, right? And then send her something with so many mistakes. To getting to $1 million in the first year, which again sounded like incredible feat. But once you get there, it's like, okay, great. Next year we went 5, the following year 15. The reason I share that is because the fun part was getting there, not being there. Big difference. So I love the idea of starting with the end in mind. I think it's a really important thing for me. The end in mind was, personally, I wanted to have financial security for my family so that we get to do the things that we want to do at the pace and time that we want to do. That's my number one goal. It's like get there personally and then professionally. The other thing was, like, as an organization, when I was at other companies, only the executives made money. The rest of the company, when something happened like an IPO, as you said, and others, they didn't make money. So we made sure that every person in the company has a stock option. So when you come in as an employee of Terminus, you get a stock option, period.
So, right, automatically they're incentivized to row on the same, to row harder because they're in that boat and they're going to get something out of it as well. So that's awesome.
People say, like, hey, we're like a family. I'm like, okay, well then prove it, right? Like, and most people don't do that. So starting with the end in mind, we want everybody in our organization to professionally and personally grow in everything they do. Like, that's part of our things. For our customers, is like, we want to make them heroes in their organizations. If we achieve these two goals for our employees and for our customers, that's the end that we see, right? Like, so does that, an IPO is not an end. Because what after IPO, you have to now have these quarterly earnings and stuff like that. So it's a never-ending prophecy for yourself, right? So instead of that, I think we have more of these overarching goals for ourselves and our customers, which is we want to see every person in our company have incentives to grow the business forward and be innovative around it. We want them to personally grow. So we do stuff like everybody has skill shares. Everybody has, like, we literally yesterday we announced everybody gets $250 to figure out what they want to do at their home office, because everybody's working from home. Make it your own, like however you want. You want a fish tank? Go get a fish tank if that's what makes you happy. Instead of watching a screen. Make Friday half days, made it a permanent thing for at least for the year, saying, hey, you know what? Friday half days is good because everybody's stressed out. So give you like almost 2 days and a half. So again, I think the end in mind is important, but I'll be very careful. Do not have the end in mind tied to a title, money, a specific event, because every time I have done it, I have found myself in a little bit of a miserable position. I wasn't happy.
So that I love that you're saying that, because that segues into a little bit of this, right? Two things. One is, for you personally, what has work-life balance meant with COVID-19 for you, as well as you just shared what you're doing with your employees, which I think is fantastic, right? And a lot of companies that are fortunate enough to be able to do what your guys are doing, do it, right? They're giving some additional perks for people that are working from home with everything that's going on, having, the children, working parents, maybe being in that sandwich generation where you're not only taking care of your own children, but you might have, your father, mother who's in their 60s, 70s, and thinking about them as well. What are you doing to stay sane? Because you have such an aura of energy, but now that you've shared with me that you do have family both here and in India, what are you doing for that work-life balance in your family, and how are you thinking about the others that might be across the ocean?
Well, I mean, those are some of the reasons why I let go of having a whole team reporting into me and stuff, because I want to get out of operations so I can do some of these things, right? The other thing I do is that every Friday, you see me online, but you will probably never see anything from me from Friday, 7 p.m. to after church on Sunday, because that is my time where I switch off my phone, literally, and put it away, because I'm the worst offender of it, because I'm so active, so engaged, and I want to engage. I don't post stuff and not engage. I want to engage with every person who actually like comments and stuff, but they're a person. So all these things takes time, energy, and all these things. So I, on purpose, it happened about 2 months ago or something, I'll try to switch off my phone around Friday and not pick up until after church on Sunday.
That's great.
That allows me to like pick up a real book that we're reading right now and finish it, right? Like actually be thoughtful about it, not be looking at the dings. And so the other thing I have is like my phone doesn't have any alerts.
You remove the notifications for that whole period.
Yeah, for the whole, like, for most, like there's no other notification. And the only notification that I have enabled right now is our peak community notification, because we're building that up. And I realized that once we get to a certain point, I will turn, but LinkedIn and any other place that I'm super active, zero notifications. I go there when I have time to go there and when I want to go there, but not because I'm getting dinged all the time, because it takes you away from what you're trying to do at any given time. So there are certain things like that, but I would say that work-life balance is, I actually don't advise as a thing or talk about that as a thing. I think it's the intentionality of it. So my kids, you can see my whole family here. Like this is me as a person, as a whole, right? Like part of something I learned and part of something who I am. And things like our kids, when they would say, my son is Krish, is 10, my daughter is 5. And when we say we love you, I'm like, I don't want you to say I love you when you're going outside the house or stuff. You got to look in my eyes and say that you love me. And I need to do the same thing to you. We're not going to look at my phone and say, yeah, I love you too. No, that's not how it works. Like we'll have a proper prayer before lunch and dinner. That's the time we sit down and do it. We wait until mom is not always cooking. Mom is on the lunch table or dinner table with us. And we only start when we all are sitting there together with nothing else. So there are things, that micro decisions that you have to start making in your day that's going to drive your personal level of happiness and joy in it. So I don't look at it as like, well, 5 o'clock close. No, it's not necessary, but I'll make sure I have time dedicated with my kids. So when I'm playing literally outside in the cul-de-sac, we'll play tennis sometimes. But at that time, I don't have my phone in my pocket. It's in the house. I'm with him, right? So those things, these micro decisions are really what joy is to me. Not necessarily a full on or I only work 9 to 5. Like, I don't know if sometimes I don't, sometimes I do.
I love that. Other guests have said sort of the same thing, that it's more of a flow, and it's how you become intentionally present, right? Present with your family, present with your partner, present with whatever, present with an activity. In your case, reading a real book versus, posting something about a podcast that you just did or what have you. So that's awesome. And I love what you're saying, because, as you know, I have small children as well, a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, 2 boys, and mischievous. And during this, really early years in their childhood, and on a pandemic, living through a pandemic, it's made me realize that I have to be more intentional about spending quality time with them, right? Because we could all get buried into our own world of whatever we're doing for work, whatever, content we're trying to create, and forget the simple things in life, right? So I love that you're telling and you're very transparent about this, because I think for others that are trying to aspire to get to your level, to see that there's that kind of flow that you have or you've created might give them or inspire them to think about it in a different way. So
I'll even add to that. Like, I involve him in some of this. So for Krish, he has seen Peak Community, because I literally, to me, I'm building it for him to see that, hey, how do you build a business and how do you build that? So he saw that when we had 0 people in it, and he would ask me, what are you doing, Papa? What are you doing today? I'm like, well, this is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking of doing recaps and this. He's like, why are you doing 2? I'm like, I want people to know all the things that are going on in here. And he will ask me every day. He will check and say, how many members do we have? Well, who is more engaged? He actually knows some of the members in the peak.
I love that.
Right?
Wow.
So I want him to recognize that there's hard work involved in everything we do. And I want him and Kiara, when she's, a little bit more grown up, it's like, this is how you build stuff. So I want to involve, and I think I'll advise everybody to don't try to do that's why I hate the work-life balance concept, because it's saying that, hey, work is like almost like alien or bad. No, work allows you to have a great life. Let's be honest about that. Yeah. So involve them to see what it's like to work hard, see what it's like to build something, if that's what you're doing, or what your job is. Sometimes I'll have him sit and listen to a podcast that I'm doing with somebody, and he would like get frustrated, but I've seen that he picked up on a few things later on that he talks to me. So stuff like that, I hope 10 years from now, he would some of that will itch in his brain and might motivate him to do something in his own life.
Yeah, man, I love that. I love that you're doing that early on with them, because I think, the show me, don't tell me. Yeah. And if you're doing, especially if you're doing this in front of your children, it's awesome. And I know that in a recent one you showed, I think on the LinkedIn Live earlier this week, your kids had drawn things they hear you say, like going live now, boom, right? The trademark.
Yeah, they've heard and they have it all here.
Yeah. No, I love it. My 3-year-old's a little too young, but they sometimes see me doing post-production of this podcast, and they're like, they look at it because, they see me doing videos and stuff like that. So they get in a little bit involved, and I explain a little bit of them. But no, this is awesome. So, before we wrap it up, I want to get from you, for our listeners, because I really believe that leaders are readers, and I can see a nice healthy bookshelf behind you. Plus, you're a 2-time author of ABM is B2B and ABM for Dummies, which is no easy task, and both have won awards, and rightfully so. So tell us, what are you reading now, or 3 books you would recommend, or that you think are helpful.
Well, this month we're reading this book, The Brand Intervention by David, and we're having to have him. So to me, branding is really interesting, and it always feels like, man, I feel like, we're so bad at it. We're so bad at it. Like it's a thing. The other book is Story Brand. I think we read
Donald Miller.
Well. Yeah, Donald Miller. I think he's really good at like the words, and I think we all know words have the power of life and death. So words matter and what you use. So those are 2 of my favorite. The other book, there's a book called, I think we should do this in our peak community, by Kim Scott, called Radical Candor. And that's about her when she was at Google with Sheryl Sandberg at Facebook, and around this idea of like, hey, look, if you really care about your team, you'll be radically candid with them, which means you tell them the truth, however it hurts, and be okay with that you're not the nicest person, but you want to be the best person or best advocate for them. So I think as a leader, one of the things I struggle with the most is being so radically candid with everybody, saying that, man, that sucks. You get better. I can do that on a podcast. I can do that online and stuff, but it's just not my personality. That's not standard for me to say something like, hey, this is not good. Like, that's just not in me. But I recognize more and more how important that is, so the other person can have the best version of themselves ahead of it. So it's a good leadership book for folks who may not consider like feedback as one of the most important things they got to do for their team.
No, I love that. So there's one thing that I like to have as fun with my guests, and that is, I'm on the 4th floor, right? So I'm in my 40s, and I think we're contemporaries. And I grew up watching, the Back to the Future series, right?
Oh yeah.
So if we were to jump on the DeLorean with Marty and go back into the future to talk to and speak with a young Sangram, what is some advice you would give him, or what would you say?
That's a good one. I love Back to the Future too. I would say just just take one day at a time, and do the best work of your life one day at a time. I started journaling about three and a half years ago. And I think through journaling, I've just realized how much great therapy. As a matter of fact, my son does journaling as well, like from last 2 and 3 years since I started. He said, what are you doing every night? And I would do that. So now we do about, not every night, but at least 4 nights a week. And it has taught me around that like I'll always write what's the most important thing for me, what am I happy about, and what do I need to work on. Just a little bit, like maybe 5 sentences. Now it's a framework, at some point, some other time. But that really helped me recognize that I don't need to build, like, think about peak community. Like, I'm not trying to build 8,000 people in one day. I'm like going like 5, 10, 5, 10, 5, 10, so we can build intimacy and relationship. So I have to always remind myself to slow down, and that is important in order to build great things in life. So that's what I would say is, like, sometimes in life I've gone too fast, too quick. And I think rather, which is what I'm doing now, which is I'm being consistent and I'm being intentional around certain things. So, but when you're too young, you're too young. And, yes, I just turned 41 last week. So yeah, we are contemporaries for sure.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, man. Really good insight. I think you're right. Take it one day at a time. Think about the marathon, the long game, I should say. But yeah, be very intentional. And I think you're doing that for sure. You're showing that by example, and your company's obviously reaping rewards right and left because of that at the industry level. So, I want to thank you so much for your time and all these great insights and the communities you're building. You definitely have shaped folks. I had Morgan J. Ingram the other day, and he was shaped through your company and through your experience and things you shed light on his sales career as well. He mentioned you post and pre-show, so and during the show as well. So this has been exciting and awesome. And so for people, if they want to learn more, how can they reach you? How can they find out more about ABM and Terminus? And where would you lead them to?
All right. So here's a challenge I'll give everybody. All right. This is where, I think I love giving books away. That. So it's like, just DM me on LinkedIn and tell me what is the one thing that made you think, made you move, made you could reconsider, whatever that is, from all of this, from Gianni, from me, from this conversation. And you hit me up on LinkedIn as a direct message, and I'll shoot you a copy of my book, ABM is B2B. No strings attached, nothing, but I want to hear what mattered to you, because otherwise, why did we do it?
Man, I love that. All right. So we'll definitely put that all in the show notes, and I really appreciate it. I know people can find you on LinkedIn Live. You're doing Monday, Wednesdays. You've got your Flip My Funnel podcast with hundreds of thousands of community members, and you're a co-founder and now the chief evangelist, right?
Yep.
Chief evangelist at Terminus.com for those who want to learn more about this ABM platform and leader in the space. And again, thanks so much for the time today. Had a great time, and boom, we got this because we had Sangram on today. Sangram here, and boom. So thanks so much, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Gianni. It was a pleasure. And thanks everybody for listening.